Roundtable at Uncle's Studios in beautiful Southern California. Welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for you employees, you employers, and of course, you independent contractors. My name is Steve Appel, and I'll be your host for the next hour with some talk, news, and hopefully some answers about Work Comp Matters. Thanks for being part of the show, and if you can break away from your Work Comp Matters, feel free to give us a call and clue us in with your questions, comments, and or concerns. The phone number worldwide, 818-357-4120. You can send me an email to wcexaminer@aol.com. Heck, you can even be old school. Send me a fax, 818-475-1437. With me in studio, the Chief of Staff, Dr. Michael Zyma, Mr. Daniel Brin, Scott Walden of Uncle's Studio is on the board taking care of the technical difficulties. And of course, back at Work Comp Central, making sure the whole damn thing goes right, is Jake Paris. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters. Robert is out, and Daniel Brin is in. And believe me, I love me some Daniel Brin in-house, in studio, in the house. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming in. I think it's been about a year since the last time you were here.
It was early this year.
It was earlier
March
this year.
or so.
You know, and I got to thank you very much for spending your valuable time to come in. And I know, just like me, just like Mike, and I know just like Scott, we are all Dodger fans. I know that you can check my wrists anytime you want, slit them open. I bleed Dodger blue, okay? And it's been a wonderful week. You know, also, we have judges training, which is today as well as tomorrow. I know it's at the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board. I'm not sure if it's at Superior Court, but all of our local judges in this area are in training, and any of the judges that are listening to the show, I tell you, I wish you very much good luck on your training, and I would love to be a fly on the wall, but I don't think they allow any of us non-judges in, but heck, I'm not even an attorney, so, you know, wouldn't have a shot. I know Robert commiserates and talks about the show with some of the other judges. I wonder if they're mentioning Work Comp Matters at judges training. What do you think, Mike?
I hope so.
There you go. Some of the stories we're going to be talking about tonight are, well, you have it as potentially destructive devices. About 5 or 6 bombs went off at different locations.
They did not go off. They were just received by authorities.
And Mike is going to talk about that for our first story. We also have a story on Sandra Day O'Connor, the Monsanto verdict. Southern California Gas Company settles a case, charges against Orange County's former most eligible bachelor. USC's Dr. George Tyndall. Of course, there's proposed cannabis tax for up north in California. We have the e-cigarettes and lobbying. Of course, there's the typhus outbreak in L.A. County and many more stories. My name is Steve Appel. You're listening to Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by A1 Law, Santa Monica Tickets, and ABC Rugs. If you want the #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system in the damn Kuiper Belt, you give me a call, 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee. $1 a day. A1 Law. And of course, if you want those hard to get sold out, yes, folks, even front row concert sports theater tickets, give my buddy Brian a call. I've known him for 25 years at Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. And last but not least, here's a little something from ABC Rugs. ABC Rugs has been in the business of manufacturing and direct importation and exportation of Persian and Oriental rugs for more than 39 years. ABC Rugs is a direct importer and wholesaler of antique, Moroccan, Oriental, and Persian rugs. Established in 1978, ABC Rugs is definitely old school. 323-897-5444. That's ABC Rugs. 323-897-5444. And there goes ABC Rugs. We're going to get to Daniel Brin. We're going to get to news of the day. But right now it's time for me to introduce my chief of staff. He keeps me in check and out of trouble, hopefully at least 90% of the time. With the first news story of the day, Dr. Michael Zyma.
Thank you. Items identified as suspicious packages were received at multiple locations this week, addressed to Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, Eric Holder, George Soros, and Maxine Waters. Another package was rerouted to the return address for the Florida office of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. The items in the packages were described as, quote, crude but functional low ordnance explosive devices, end quote. So far, no one has been injured. Law enforcement is investigating.
With the second news story of the night, I've known him for a couple of years, and he is, I believe, the head of the West Hills Council. He's also on the Facebook. He's been in community and volunteering his time in the West San Fernando Valley for 20, 30 years, and I thank him very much for volunteering his time to come to Workcom Matters, Mr. Daniel Brin.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'll read about Sandra Day O'Connor. Okay, the 88-year-old former U.S. Supreme Court Justice has announced her retirement from public life to having been diagnosed with the early stages of Alzheimer-like dementia. O'Connor is the first female to serve on the United States Supreme Court. A 1981 Ronald Reagan appointee, O'Connor was confirmed unanimously by the Senate.
What a concept, eh?
A Northern California judge on Monday upheld a jury's verdict that found Monsanto's weed killer caused a groundkeeper's cancer, but knocked the judgment down to $78 million. I think originally it was a couple of $100 million. With its stock dropping and more lawsuits expected, Monsanto vowed to press on with a nationwide legal defense of its best-selling weed killer, Roundup. You know, Daniel, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Monsanto part of, is it Target or something like that? Or
it's a being of its own. It's enormous.
And they are an enormous company, and as with all enormous companies, that's what makes them targets. I play on words there. Thank
Clever.
you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Daniel.
There's no corporate relationship between Target and Monsanto.
Got you. They are just a company. They are not the Target brand. They are just their own company that Target sells. Okay. Those are the first couple of news stories, and thank you very much. We've got the Dodgers on the World Series, and as said earlier, I have been a Dodgers fan for over 50 years, ever since I can remember. I think one of the first Dodger games I went to probably was when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I've told Mike this story many times. My grandfather and I used to go to Pink's Hot Dogs on Melrose
Love
and
that place.
La Brea. My grandfather went to high school with Paul Pink, who was the original owner. We would get hot dog, Coke, and then we would eat there. We would then go to the Dodger game. He would spend 50 cents a ticket, and we would sit in the outfield, and we would watch the game. And that was my lead-in to Dodger baseball. And I have been a Dodger fan regardless of if they are in first place, last place, World Series, doing great, sucking. And
Daniel, do you remember your first Dodger Stadium experience?
I remember before that, I saw them play at the Coliseum when they first moved over here.
That's a full 20 points right there, Steve.
Yes, I know, and that would be 1960 or 61.
58 or 59.
Really, really.
Well, they came in 58, and they went into Dodger Stadium in 62. So was it a pennant year? Was it 59? Do you recall?
I just remember a game. I was new to the sport.
Do you remember
I was
who was
5
pitching?
years old.
Do you remember who was
No, I
pitching?
don't remember. Possibly Don Drysdale.
My first game was July 1962. The stadium had just opened in April, and that was the year, that Maury Wills redefined how to play the game, stole 104 bases. Tommy Davis had 153 RBIs, but
remember them both.
unfortunately, Mr. Koufax had a problem with one of his fingers. And it was Dr. Curlin that figured out that it was a blood clot. So all he had to do was prescribe medication. But by the time September came, Koufax wasn't at full strength. But in '63, he came back, played the whole season, MVP and the Cy Young Award, and they swept the Yankees in the World Series, and it was nirvana. And frankly, nothing has ever come close to that moment when we finished Game 4. With Koufax jumping from the mound and into the arms of John Roseburg.
Not even Gibson's home run in '89, I think.
I would say if the Koufax thing was a 10, Gibson was a 9.36.
Now, see, now, for whatever that's worth, a lot of people on the internet would disagree with you because I've seen like the 10 most exciting moments in sports at all, and the Gibson home run is right there. And when you go to the most exciting top 5 or top 10 in Los Angeles or California history, Gibson is like number 1 or number 2.
Well, yeah, it is amazing, but just for me, that was my first full season wire to wire because I only came in halfway through '62. It was like, you mean people get paid to play this? How many people does this place hold? 54,000 people. I was from a cow town, okay, and I had never seen anything like that. It completely blew my mind. And still, I get that way when I go to Dodger Stadium. It's heaven on earth to me.
And then, of course, you have Sandy Koufax, who didn't play one of the World Series games because it was on Yom Kippur. And then you have Koufax and Drysdale holding out for $125,000 split between the two of them to renegotiate their contract.
Koufax got 115 to 120, and Drysdale got 105.
You happen to know
really?
that?
Oh,
okay.
Mike is an encyclopedia of baseball. Please.
Yeah, I grew up in the Fairfax district or close to it, so Sandy was like an icon. He was the local hero.
Daniel, I did go to Carthay Center Elementary School. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I went to 3rd Street Elementary and John Burroughs Junior High School.
I was going to go to John Burroughs High School, and then they had just announced about a year or two before I was going to go into 7th grade that there were 1 or 2 pencil shiftings at the Burroughs High School, and then fortunately, yeah, absolutely.
What does that mean?
That means that a student was stabbed with a pencil, and so fortunately, we moved out to the San Fernando Valley, and so for my first year in middle school, I went to Portola. Then, of course, I graduated, advanced to Birmingham High School in Van Nuys when they were the Birmingham Braves. Thank you very much. I definitely do not believe in the Birmingham Patriots.
We still
Screw
are the
you.
Hart High Indians at Hart High in Santa Clarita, which is formerly Newhall. I know I mentioned the name Newhall, and Daniel's going to begin to make fun of me immediately. I know that.
I refuse to.
Yeah, I still don't.
That 10.
I still don't know the difference between Newhall, Santa Clarita, and Valencia. To me, they're all the same.
Well, just about 20 years ago, everybody just threw up their hands and said, let's just call the whole area Santa Clarita. And it's been pretty consistent since then. There are older parts like Newhall, where I grew up, is old Newhall, but it's very specific. It's not a very big place at all.
And then if you can't remember that, it's just Magic Mountain. So
I worked at Magic Mountain as a security guard, and believe me, the place was never safer than when I was a security guard.
I believe that. I totally believe that.
That was probably my most bizarre gig ever.
Did they have you dressed up like a clown or something?
No, actually, I was dressed as a cop.
On Halloween.
Dig that.
The Southern California Gas Company on Monday agreed to pay $46 million to settle a lawsuit by a motorcyclist who was struck and badly injured by a company driver who suffered an epileptic seizure. Speaking of the gas company, Daniel, what's the name of that gas company plant that's in the Northridge area?
Aliso Canyon?
Thank
Aliso
you.
Canyon, yeah.
Aliso Canyon.
It's a storage facility.
Right. What's the latest on the Aliso Canyon? The latest I heard is that they have confirmed that there was benzene leaking out of that leak. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is literally the worst gas leak in the entire history of the United States, right in our
In
own
the
back.
world.
Oh, thank you, in the world. Is that true?
Yeah.
Please tell us more.
Well, it's completely ruined the counterbalanced all the efforts to reduce greenhouse emissions in California for years and years and years.
How did it impact that?
Well, it's methane is a greenhouse gas.
But it's unburnt methane.
Yeah, so it goes up in the atmosphere, and it creates the greenhouse effect.
Creates carbon?
No, it's its own greenhouse gas.
Okay.
Do you know how they get the gas in those tanks in the first place? Or do you know?
Well, they're natural caverns
They're
in
mined.
there.
They're
Yeah.
mined.
So do they put pipes in there? Or
Yeah, they just pump it down there, into there, and then they take it out when they need it. Isn't that interesting?
And that was a very poignant pause. Let me tell you.
Well, it really is, because I think it's important to note that they are naturally occurring events. It's just how we mess with them that screws everything up. I mean,
Yes, and they also add things into the methane. So you can smell it when it's released.
Thank you very much. It essentially smells like rotten eggs because natural methane does not smell at all, and they purposely put that there so you know if there's a leak.
Right. And if anybody left the stove on without lighting it, you could smell it in your house.
Exactly. And so that brings me to my DWP bill. And I got to say, I've never had a problem with my gas bill. I mean, my gas bill on a monthly basis is like $25, $30. My DWP bill, the last two bills, every 2 months, has exceeded $1,000.
what?
Oh,
That's got to be a mistake.
no, it's not a mistake. Scott says same here. Now, I can tell you what it attributes to. Most of it, I want to say 75-80% of my DWP bill is the water, okay? And it's not the electricity. And it just keeps going up and up and up. Now, Daniel, you may know, a couple of months ago, they changed the billing cycle where before, a couple of months ago, there was only a Tier 1 and a Tier 2. And then a couple of months ago, they changed it to Tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. And here's the point. Once you pass the second tier and go to the third tier, whatever charges are in the third tier are almost double. They're 50 to 100% higher than the second tier. And once you get to the fourth tier, those are like almost 50% to 100% above the third tier. Right, Scott? And my bill has just gone crazy wacko.
Well, Daniel, has your bill gone up also?
It's gone up to around $500
Every 2 months.
every 2 months. Yeah.
Okay.
I have solar power.
Oh, you have solar power.
Yes, and I also use it to gas up, if you use the word gas, my electric vehicle.
Now, how long have you had solar power for?
About 3 or 4 years.
Okay. And I have to presume that if you did not have solar power, your DWP bill would be a minimum twice what it is now, which would bring, you're shaking your head no.
I don't think so. I think it would be maybe $100 or $200.
So how much are you saving by going solar?
It really, in the long run, it doesn't cost me at all. As a matter of fact, to make a profit on it. First,
But didn't you say you spent that you were paid $500 every 2 months?
I pay for my total DWP bill.
Yes, that's what he said.
Okay, which includes the fees, the trash fees, the sewage fees, the water.
It's very different in Santa Clarita. I don't know.
Yeah. So everything is bundled together. Well,
I see.
they tell you what each component is, but I'm really frugal in my electric use. I turn off my lights whenever nobody's in the room. I live
There you go.
with my
I
son.
try and do that also as well. You know, I got to tell you, guys, a little story. I was out on Van Nuys Boulevard smoking a cigarette today.
Shame on
And
you. Shame on you.
you know what? I am addicted. I can't break it. I fully admit it. And all of a sudden, without warning, a bird scooter goes by. And I have never seen one of those bird scooters before. Of course, we've talked about them on the show. This thing must have been going about 20, 25 miles an hour on the sidewalk. Now, you say to yourself, 20, 25 miles an hour, that's nothing. But I tell you, if that scooter hit a rock, that person on that scooter would have flown 50 feet down the sidewalk.
Did he have a helmet on?
She did not have a helmet on. And at first, I didn't even know it was a bird scooter because I had never seen one of those before. But it was like, whoosh, and boom, you know what I mean? And I just said, wow, now I understand what all the fuss is about.
Well, they certainly have to be regulated somehow, don't you think, Daniel?
I agree. The problem is that they're leaving them on the sidewalks. They just walk away when they're finished.
Well, I
And
think
so
that's
people
the whole
tripping over
that's
them
the
on
whole
the
purpose
sidewalk.
of them. And what I've suggested is that, like, when you go to a school or a library, imagine that. When you go to a school, a library, any type of public building, they have places where you can put your bicycle, where you can chain that up. And when we had reported on these bird scooters before on Work Comp Matters, I had suggested, well, maybe there should be a requirement to allow them in the city that they have to have like a place where they can put them where they're out of the way, where people cannot trip on them.
It is illegal to do that. There are prescribed places to put them, but the problem is that to the user it doesn't matter. They don't.
Some
have to pay
users
any
ignore
penalties.
the regulations.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a lot of them.
And, of course, this thing was going by so fast, but I couldn't tell. But I guess there's a place where you can put your credit card in the scooter or whatever, and it calculates however far you're going and whatnot. I know these things are real prevalent in Santa Monica. They've started becoming prevalent in Sherman Oaks. But, I mean, I'm in downtown Van Nuys. I'm a block from the courthouse, okay? As I've said before, I see the homeless, I smell the smells, I hear the sounds, I see the police, I see the fire trucks, I see the everything.
We saw a fire today, didn't we?
Yeah, we saw a fire today.
A structure
fire. Here comes this scooter. By the way, Daniel, I've been waiting to ask you, what is your recent take on the homeless, both in Los Angeles, California, your national view, your world view? Give me a break. So if I was allowed to smoke in Uncle's studio, which I'm not, I could smoke a cigarette and listen to you talk about the homeless.
Well, the problem is there are people in the community who resent them so much that drowns out all other considerations, including compassion, basic virtues of humanity. And yes, they're angry, they're outraged, they complain to their city officials, but when it comes to hounding them and taking pictures of them and posting in public in social media sites and trying to humiliate them, that goes too far. I think
Has that been happening? I haven't heard about that.
Oh, it's a big deal in West Hills and Woodland Hills. We have social media sites where they essentially exist to ridicule the homeless people, and they're blamed for every ill in society.
And as I said earlier, Daniel is on the West Hills City Council, and of course, I live in Woodland Hills. So please continue.
Okay. Well, we have an active homelessness committee at the West Hills Neighborhood Council, and so do all the other surrounding neighborhood councils. And we're working on an alliance to try to find to exchange ideas and advocate should we reach agreement on
Well, I have the
policies.
solution, but please go ahead and tell me more, and I'll give you my solution.
Okay, well, I think we have to look at the cause here, and the cause is simply
Too many people being let out of jail and prison, but go ahead.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Okay, but it's the rent is too damn high. Essentially, it's people. Yeah.
Daniel, I really don't know of anybody that's homeless because their rent is too high.
Okay, well, maybe maybe
There's
you
got
need
to
to
be
do
an
some
element of
research on
that.
that.
There's got to be an element of that.
Because rents have jacked up so high that it's the most marginal people who have mental problems, people who have drug addiction problems, people who are barely hanging on. They're the ones who are forced out of the homes because they can't pay the rent.
Can't you?
So they're the ones who end up in the homelessness encampment. And yes, there's a larger population of them that are drug addicted and have mental problems. And the thing is, it's a very complicated, multidimensional problem.
Can't you get a 1-bedroom apartment for like $500 out in either Palmdale, Lancaster, or Barstow?
Yes.
Well, I don't think so. But
Really? Well, how much does it cost?
I don't know what
How much does it
rents
cost?
are. I don't think you could get a 1-bedroom apartment even in Barstow for $500.
Well, how much can you get it for?
I don't know, but the thing is that these people are from the communities. They're from L.A. They live there. Okay, how are they going to get out there? How are they going to get to? They have mental issues.
I mean,
they have drug addiction issues. They're not thinking clearly.
I'm fully
like-
willing to admit that someone who was used to living in Woodland Hills or Tarzana, hell, let's even say Calabasas or friggin' Beverly Hills.
It'd be like sending them to the moon.
For $1,000 a
Barstow?
month or $1,500 a month. And all of a sudden now their rent goes up to $1,750, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000. They are priced out of living in Calabasas, Beverly Hills, or Woodland Hills, but nobody has a right to live in those areas. And if they're priced out, maybe they just have to move somewhere else.
So are you in favor of this proposal that people are talking about? Is like for these internment camps or concentration camps out in the
I have
military
not heard
bases?
that. Who's
Well,
espousing
I
that?
have not heard that.
Who's-
Who is espousing that?
People, it's
Well, let me hear it. Tell me. I haven't heard this.
okay. Yeah. The idea is that we build settlement camps out in the desert and just push them out there.
Well, I have said build apartment buildings. I have said build apartment buildings and let's say I have said build places to house the homeless away from metropolitan areas. I haven't heard about internment camps.
Is that unreasonable, Daniel?
Yeah, it is. It's
really?
Yeah, I mean, there is freedom of movement in this country, and the last I heard, it's not against the law to be down on your luck.
Well, it's being
Right,
criminalized.
but it is
criminalized.
it is against the law to commit vagrancy.
No, it isn't. Vagrancy is off the books.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, it's been ruled unconstitutional years ago.
It's still on the books.
No.
The unconstitutional aspect, as I understand it, is that if you're going to enforce the vagrancy laws, you have to give them a place to stay the night.
Yes,
that's
that's
the
my
distinction. So the
understanding.
vagrancy laws are still live.
Well, but there's no crime in being vagrant or being poor. Okay, well,
that's apples and oranges.
No, there's a
no,
crime,
no.
but living on the public sidewalks. there's a
Right.
crime. Okay.
So, well, it's not a crime, but it was infraction or whatever it is. But the police can only have authority, and this is a court ruling. This is not city policy.
And you're referring to the Santa Ana River, Mike. What's
Well,
the
that got
the Santa Ana
proposed,
riverbed,
a proposed
and we have a
settlement is
story
out
on
on that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's connected to that. It's been the case in L.A. for many years now.
Okay.
Is so the city is obliged to provide an alternative because they have a right to exist.
And that's what that
Correct.
judge was talking about.
Correct.
Right. So the city doesn't have the authority to keep people out simply because of their economic condition. It's just it's unconstitutional. So what do? I mean, the city has an obligation to at least provide a safe place for them to sleep.
And speaking about a safe place to sleep, he was in the studio last week. Now, of course, he's back halfway around the world in Munich, Germany, with his normal contribution to the show. He's a 45-year attorney, still licensed, still got his ticket to practice law, attorney John Scalia.
Hi, this is John with the Work Comp International Report from Munich. Well, this week I'm going to do, hopefully, a reflective podcast. As you know, I was live in studio last week, and I want to thank Steve for letting me be live in studio. I had a great time. It's the second time I've been live there, and I really enjoyed it. Part of that is because I'm a natural ham, so I love having a live microphone in front of me. But the cast and crew there are really, really enjoyable to be with and really enjoyable to exchange opinions. As you know, I was in America, and I was there for 10 days. I had a really nice visit. I enjoyed myself very much. The first half, I was at a class reunion from college up in Northern California. And the second half, I was down in Southern California visiting with my sons. Well, mostly. My older son actually was only there for a short time because he was off to his 20th reunion at West Point. But it was a great time. And I feel very comfortable when I'm in America. I still feel very much at home. I want to talk about my opinions. For those of you who've listened to me on the podcast, especially live, or if any of you have read my posts on Facebook, you know that I express myself in an animated manner. That's a polite word. I express myself in a very, what could be described almost histrionic manner. It's calculated to get attention. It's calculated to get attention to my point of view. Basically, I'm a ham. I grew up speaking in front of large groups of people. From the time I was 14, I was engaged in public speaking, and it was routine for me to have a group of 100 or 200 people in an audience. So I enjoy it. And I realize that my opinions, when they're expressed with passion, sound emotional. And of course, I express them that way. The problem is that when you express opinions in an emotional manner, people sometimes believe that, well, perhaps you did not arrive at that opinion through a reasoned process, and that it's all emotion. Well, I'm here to dispel some of that, hopefully. My bachelor's degree is in history, and I still like history. In fact, right now I'm reading a book in German on the 30 Years' War. Yes, that occurred in 1520, but historians believe that events in the past cast light on the present and give us a guideline for the future. I'll get back to that point later. Secondly, I still read French existentialist philosophers for fun. Yeah, I took as many philosophy classes as I did history classes, and I still enjoy reading in both of them. The point I'm getting at is that there is a contemplative side to me. There's a side which entails reading, thinking, evaluating. And I do that before I express an opinion. Once I come to the expressing opinion point, then I do it in an animated fashion, which may make it seem as if reason was not involved in the process. So, what about America? Well, the problem with arriving at opinions about the short term is that you're in the short term. And as any historian knows, those judgments frequently turn out to be wrong. Now, they also turn out to be right. But the point is, since you're embroiled in the whirlpool of events going on, it's hard to maintain a perspective on the events. Perspective comes with time. And obviously, when you're in the event, you don't have that. And you won't have it. You won't have it for a long time after the events. So, my opinion is that in the long term, America will be okay. Our founding documents are two of the greatest documents in all of humankind, the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. They were, in fact, heavily influenced by the French Enlightenment era, and they stand for human freedom. Ho Chi Minh read from the Declaration of Independence when he declared war against France, because it's a document for freedom. I'm always waiting for somebody to ask the president, when he says that Justice Scalia was one of his favorite justices, as to whether or not he was aware of the fact that Scalia was in the majority, stating that burning the American flag was clearly symbolic speech and clearly protected by our founding documents, and therefore no law restricting it could be valid. So in the long term, I'm optimistic that America will return to the documents which founded her and for which the rest of the world believes we stand. So that's the view from Munich this week. I'm really tired, so I'm going to go back to bed. Talk to you next week.
All right. And John, thank you very much. Appreciate it. John Scalia, all the way from Munich, Germany. We now, of course, bring you back to the roundtable at Uncle's Studios. My name is Steve Appel. You're listening to WorkCom Matters. We're brought to you by A1 Law, Santa Monica Tickets, and ABC Rugs. Robert Ozeron is out. Daniel Brin is in. We're talking, of course, about the Dodgers, but when we last left off, we're talking about the homeless. And
I think I should read
ahead.
the story about that.
Yeah, you know what? Let's read the story tonight that we have on the homeless.
Because as I understand it, and as how Daniel has described, this U.S. District Court judge is applying the law as it has evolved, especially with the latest Supreme Court pronouncement on vagrancy.
Yeah, and constitutional law and constitutional precedent about individual human rights.
So a proposed settlement in the civil rights lawsuit filed by homeless people against Orange County has been submitted to the federal judge overseeing the court case. The agreement could be finalized at a hearing before U.S. District Court Judge David O. Carter on Monday, October 29. The plan, negotiated between county attorneys and lawyers representing homeless folks, dislodged from tent encampments along the Santa Ana River Trail, met the October 22nd deadline imposed by Carter at a previous hearing. And Daniel, I think it's going to be fascinating to see what the parties have agreed to in this case.
Let me be the bad guy right here. In my opinion, no one has a constitutional right, to live in the Santa Ana riverbed. But the question is, does the city have a right to eject the people out of there without giving them another place to stay?
Okay, this second is what the judge has ruled, that they do have a right to remove them if they have an alternative for them to live, because they do have a basic right to live.
Fundamental right to live where they want to.
Well, not on public streets.
The U.S. but the U.S. Supreme Court has said what the law is, and it is the exclusive province of the judiciary to determine what the law is. Thank you, Judge. Whatever it was.
Wait. The Supreme Court say that the homeless have a fundamental right to live on the sidewalk?
Not sidewalk, but just in the community.
They do have a right to exist. They have a right to live, right? So it is the courts, I believe it's the Supreme Court decision, requires...
Right. And I was quoting John Marshall, who was the first chief of the Supreme Court. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's
a fundamental right.
Fundamental right. Yeah.
So
to live on the sidewalk.
No, to exist somewhere. Exist wherever.
What community they want to, not sidewalk.
Community.
Correct.
So an apartment or a house.
Just an area. Doesn't further define it.
Well, this is very confusing. This is very suspicious.
Don't forget that these aren't all what we call bums.
I don't think it matters.
Okay, there are people who have jobs, people who are with children who are trying to.
As far as the employed ones, there's very few that I've seen.
Let me tell you, I've said
quite a few. It's a rapidly rising population.
Look, I've said it on this show before. I have a man crush on Mark Zuckerberg, who is the CEO owner of Facebook. If Mark Zuckerberg all of a sudden set up a tent in front of my office on the sidewalk and was living in that tent, I wouldn't allow him to do that either. Now, that being said, he would get a first-class invite to come to my house, to have a couple of nights in my guest room.
But what's your point there?
My point is there's no right to live on the sidewalk.
Okay. Here's the LAPD policy.
That's my point.
Here's the LAPD policy that's been described to me.
Ignore them. Yes.
No. They're allowed to sleep there, but they have to get up with the sun or whatever by a certain time, and they have to vacate.
Well, I don't agree with that either. No one
else.
has a right to sleep on the sidewalk.
Have to sleep somewhere.
Not on the sidewalk.
Then where? That's the point, really.
Well, something with four walls and a door would be preferable.
I agree with you completely.
Okay, here, let's get down to it. And then we'll move on, unless everybody's telling me this is not boring. Daniel, what if all of a sudden you had a dozen tents show up on the sidewalk in front of your home, and they were there for a month? what would you do?
Well, according to this policy,
I
they
no,
need
I
to be
no, no.
gone.
Forget
by-
about
by-
policy.
okay.
What would you do? And by the way,
I would be upset. Of
Okay,
course
Well,
I
you would
be.
evict them.
And
correct?
no disrespect. You're one of the most liberal people I know, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoy having you on the show. Is you present the point of view that occasionally lacks on this show. So if all of a sudden a dozen tents showed up on the sidewalk in front of your house, you just said you'd be pissed off.
Well, of course I would be.
And what would you do?
I would try to find some sort of alternative for them to live.
And what would that alternative be?
Well, I'm an advocate for permanent supportive housing. There's these facilities that, there's also things, there's bridge housing or temporary housing where you could put them in, and I would advocate these.
And then they
safe
went to the
parking
temporary
initiatives.
housing, and then a couple of weeks later they came back.
Well, okay. So what we need is called permanent supportive housing.
All right, here we
Okay.
go. Which I'm in favor of.
Yes, and I've toured one of these
I'm
facilities.
not in favor of encampments. I'm in favor of
Isn't
permanent.
Gavin-
Nobody's in favor of encampment.
Doesn't Gavin Newsom describe some of that stuff you're talking about?
Yeah. So so long as you have a place, I mean, let's have dormitories or whatever. Any place that's safe, that gets them off the streets. That's the number one
And
priority.
I'm in favor of that.
Okay, and so you have a place for them to stay, and this is what Orange County is working on. And then for longer term solutions, you need especially for people with mental issues and for drug addiction issues, you need
Well, shouldn't
services.
all the homeless be treated the same? Should it matter if they're drug addicted or mentally ill?
They should be treated for what they need.
What if they don't want it?
If that's okay, you can't hold a gun to somebody to say, well, take these drugs. Maybe you can.
Well,
I don't
maybe
know.
then they should go to Barstow.
I don't know.
Is that a good compromise, Steve?
Absolutely. In fact, I would say maybe North Carolina. Or
Maybe the
Tennessee.
people at Barstow might have something to say about this.
Well, you can go out there. I mean, it's a big desert, and of course, it's hotter than hell in the summertime. And
I mean,
the
it's
fall
not a
and
coincidence that a majority of the homeless are in California. We know why that is. Right?
I know why, but I don't think we agree about that.
Hollywood.
No, I didn't think these are people generally who grew up in the area, who have
Oh,
connections in the
you're
area.
right. Well, I do not agree with that, and I've got the numbers. There are approximately 1 million homeless in the United States. Over 100,000 of them are in California,
Yes.
and half of them, 50,000 of them, are in Los Angeles County.
Yes, about 58,000.
Well, I
yes.
said 50.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
fine.
You're right.
Now, why are they in Los Angeles County?
Okay, well,
They're getting the best benefits. They're getting the best climate.
Well, let
and
them-
they're
let them
getting
respond.
Please respond.
Okay, do you think that they like living in hovel tent cities? But this is their homes. They have to the degree that they have any kind of support system. It's in the community. But really, what the issue is, and it's not Proposition 47 or 57 or AB 109. It's the fact that the rent is too damn high. It's the rent, and the Aliso Canyon blowout had a lot to do with that. It's because when all these people had to evacuate and they moved to other parts
People
of the city.
that were living in Porter Ranch are now homeless.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Affected the
Okay,
market.
okay.
Affected
It
the market.
affected the overall market. So rents skyrocketed, and it's the people who are the most vulnerable, the people with mental illness, the people with drug addiction problems.
So,
The
Daniel, I
they're the ones who are
Let him
pushed
respond.
out. They're the ones who are pushed out because they don't have the wherewithal to deal with the bureaucracy or with getting public support, that sort of thing. They're just barely hanging on anyway, and they're the ones who end up on the streets more
So,
than anybody
Daniel,
else.
if it can be documented that some of these folks do not want to cooperate with any kind of help or whatever, should not those folks then be asked to, and then maybe even forcefully removed?
It's a complicated question. I don't know if I have
know
the
it is.
answer.
I know. What do you think,
It's so many aspects to it.
Yeah.
No question about it. As
You would
far
do
as
that.
absolutely, I would be the first one to buy them bus tickets out to North Carolina or Tennessee or somewhere in the heartland in Middle America. Let them go be homeless out in Middle America and see how they're treated out there. No question about it.
Even if they're schizophrenic and drug addicted.
But
and
again, they're refusing.
You just can't. Okay, but what kind of personal choice do you have? If you're schizophrenic,
There's 49 other states. Why are they picking my state?
they're not picking anything. They're
It's a
just
NIMBY.
existing.
NIMBY. not in my
Daniel,
day.
I disagree with you that a majority of the homeless that are. I shouldn't say that. I should say, Daniel, I disagree with you, and I believe that a major portion of the homeless immigrated here from other states because it's easier and more convenient
Do you have stats on that?
to be homeless
Yeah.
in California. No, I don't have stats on it.
I don't think it's true. And I have people who are involved in the homelessness care and response, and that's not what I've heard.
Well, what percentage of the
I don't
100,000?
have
What
the
percentage
figure.
of the 100,000 were born and raised and lived in California before they were homeless?
I don't have that figure.
Okay, all right.
Well, I got to tell you, though, I mean, I sure am sick of seeing the degree of the homelessness and the apparent degenerating state of the various folks.
Yeah.
And it's really depressing.
It is. And nothing's going to happen until we find what we described earlier is places for them to bunk out at night, at the very least.
Well, I am more than happy to spend some of my tax dollars on creating permanent places for the homeless to live until they can, if ever,
Yes.
support themselves.
And you are. We have Proposition H and HHH, and these are funds that are both on the city and county level are bringing enormous amounts of money to approach this situation. But they have to hire people. They have to hire a social worker. They have to build the places, and then they have to deal with site fights.
Okay, Daniel, one thing I'm asking, site fights. I mean, what if some folks want to, gosh darn it, continue to use their drugs? Do you kick them out? You'd have to.
Okay, there has to be. Okay, I'm in favor, and you guys are probably in line with this. Is that there's more meat and muscle in the law now to allow the state and relatives to put people into conservatorship, because they're no longer able to take care of themselves. Yes,
I hadn't even thought of that.
I agree with that. And I agree that there are certain situations where people, unfortunately, and it's very tragic, that they would lose their freedom because they simply are not competent to take care of themselves.
Because of drugs or mental illness?
Yeah.
Well, but apparently they would say they are competent to take care of themselves as long as they're out on the street
It'd have
and
to
no
be
one's
adjudicated.
telling them what to
Yes,
do.
It has to be adjudicated, right?
Yeah, we'd have to have like courts for that, it seems.
Yeah.
Homeless courts.
Yeah. And the problem is do we go too far? I mean, you guys are civil libertarians. You believe in freedom and human
Yes,
dignity.
yes.
As it can go too far.
Yes.
Wait,
Certainly,
are you
certainly.
accusing me of being a civil libertarian?
You are.
Yeah, you are. I would.
We
I'm
are.
a rhino. I'm a
Rhinos
rhino.
are civil libertarians.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
You believe in liberty,
Absolutely.
maximum
You bet.
amount of liberty.
Absolutely.
And if we sometimes err in the wrong direction, so be it. But we have certain principles that we all share.
Yeah.
But I
Absolutely.
find myself getting more conservative as I age. Okay, next year I'll be 65.
Well, I would say most people that are conservative didn't start out that way. I would think most people are liberal Democrats in high school and in college, and then after they graduate, they go out into the working world, they
Exactly.
get married, they have kids, they naturally become more conservative. Daniel, would you agree with that or no?
Nah.
Okay,
No,
all right.
it's certainly not in my experience.
Well, I didn't have a Republican friend literally until I was out of college and in my profession.
When I was in college, oh my God,
You couldn't be Republican.
The Republican youth were like less than 5%, and they were outcasts.
Yeah.
we laughed at them.
Sproul Plaza, going down Sproul Plaza used to be great.
You went to Berkeley?
I went there for a cup of coffee.
I
We talked about this
I
before.
normally don't mention names, but when I went to college, the head of the Young Republicans, I kid you not, this was like made for TV. His name was, quote, Chauncey Medbury III, close quote, and he was the head of the Young Republicans. Chauncey Medbury III.
Sounds like a name from Animal House.
Yeah, I went to Brandeis, which is
There you
probably,
go. No, I know
the
Brandeis,
one,
yeah.
probably the one university that's more left wing than UC Berkeley. Okay, but the head of the campus Republicans was a friend of mine. He was also like a big major drug dealer. But that was
There
early
is a
70s.
story out which I'm going to piggyback on the homeless. This month, Los Angeles declared a typhus outbreak in downtown Los Angeles. The county's Department of Public Health has encountered 64 typhus cases this year, including 10 in downtown LA. I can only attribute this to the homeless. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think so.
I think typhus is basically fleas that are on animals that transfer to humans. And
It's like it's the Middle Ages, for crying out loud.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And we all have compassion to the homeless, and we also have revulsion, and that natural revulsion. It's just, what do we do about it?
Well, it just seems more lately that they're getting more and more bizarre in their look, in the way they look, and not necessarily the way they behave.
Did we
I
read
haven't
this?
been
Did we
assaulted
read
or-
the story or no?
Which one?
About the homeless, Mike. I think we were going to read it, and I think we totally just forgot about it.
What number is it?
13.
Yeah, I did read it.
Oh, you did. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. Very good.
My
very
mic
good.
fell over. Hold on a second.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Well,
there it
that's
goes.
okay.
All
You're
right.
getting a little excited.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. But
I'm waving my hands all over the
getting
place.
excited, speaking excited, Scott, do we have a score on the Dodger game or no? And apparently we do. It's a 1-1 in the third inning.
We think it's the third. I just want the record to
Well, it's
reflect
1-1.
Record to reflect the fact that I got a text from my son and it just had the word hits. So I think something's going on.
Mike is got 2 tickets to the World Series for game number
12
4.
rows behind home plate.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Last year,
So
game 2, and it was
envious,
Nirvana.
man.
I am jealous.
Jelly is what the
Ooh,
kids
jelly,
say.
Jelly. We've got another musical break on WorkCom Matters. My name is Steve Appel. We're brought to you by Santa Monica Tickets, A1 Law, and ABC Rugs. We'll be back with the final segment of WorkCom Matters after this.
1, 2, 3.
Should've known it'd come to this. Sure would like to travel to that crazy place behind your eye. Let it all unravel. Starting out swinging round, stringing up pearls, baby. I could never understand your star-spangled rodeo. Your hurricane blowing by your home to me. Yeah, home to me. When you're singing out like Sunday on the Memphis radio. You know you scorch my soul like the sun sinking in the sea. Oh, I got my sweet surrender. You can do no wrong with me. Holding on forever. You got to talk to me, baby, in your secret melody. Oh, send it home to me. You got to bring it on home to me, darling. Singing out like Sunday on the Memphis distribution nationwide. Keep my music safe inside. Turn it into gold. Turn it into gold. On Memphis radio. Oh, yeah, look at now. Baby, send it home to me. You got to bring it on home to me. When you're singing out like Sunday on a Memphis radio. Singing like Mavis. You let it out like muddy on a Memphis radio. Yeah.
Gotta love me, the sweet folk rock sounds of Susan Scheller on WorkCom Matters. My name is Steve Appel. We're brought to you by A1 Law, Santa Monica Tickets, and ABC Rugs. Robert Ozeron is out, and gotta love me, some Daniel Brin is in. Thank you very much for coming on in.
I
know
love
it's
you
the
too, Steve.
Oh, thank you very much.
And you too, Mike.
Hugs and kisses on the cheek after the show.
Daniel
right.
Brin in the house. In the house.
Let's see. What's a news story that I want to read? Okay, here we go. Speaking of the homeless, the United States is beginning to turn the tide on the opioid epidemic. HHS Secretary Alex Azar said yesterday, pointing to a new federal data showing a slight dip in overdose deaths last year. Preliminary CDC data released last week shows drug overdose deaths, which spiked in 2017, dropped almost 3% toward the end of last year and the beginning of 2018. Azar credited federal, state, and local efforts one day before President Donald Trump will sign overwhelmingly bipartisan legislation to address the opioid crisis.
Didn't the certain drug companies violate statutes and engage in egregious behavior in this whole opioid problem,
I think
Daniel?
all drug companies at one time or another violate statutes.
I don't think it's a matter of statutes. It might be, but civil liability. I think they're in danger. The way that they pushed.
Well, I think it's total bribery, baby. They're offering doctors kickbacks and under the table money and gifts and vacations to prescribe their drugs.
Yeah, but I think Daniel's right. Civil liability will ultimately be the undoing of these bad guys, I believe.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're hugely wealthy, and when you're hugely wealthy, it's you don't get punished.
Talking about maybe
And,
not.
well, to the same extent that
Cosby did.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what? Talking about another bad guy, though, I just want to get this in, okay? Because we've talked about this on the show before, okay? 14 more women accusing a former University of Southern California gynecologist of sexual misconduct sued the doc and the university on Tuesday as their lawyer decried a proposed class action settlement with the school as grossly inadequate. Women's rights attorney Gloria Allred said the tentative $215 million deal reached last week to settle claims brought in federal court against Dr. George Tyndall and USC by his former patients would let the university off too easy without the school fully accounting for its role in the scandal. And I tell you, Steve, you may remember I said, okay, that dean, Daniel, that raised $500 million, I said it's all going to go into the pockets of the plaintiffs here.
Right.
And so now we're up to $215 million is grossly inadequate. So if you double it, maybe you're getting there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And of course, the big issue in my mind, I mean, it's totally egregious what the doc did, but the cover-up by the school for
Unbelievable. You know how it got
25,
exposed, right?
30 years.
Somebody actually called the rape hotline.
Really?
Yes, that's how it got exposed.
Didn't know that.
Well,
Didn't
who's
know
the
that.
perp? Oh, Dr. George Tyndall.
Just totally egregious, the cover-up. And clearly there are still people that are regularly employed at the school that had to be part
I agree
of
with
the
it. Knew of
cover-up.
it. Knew
Knew
of
of it. Well, if you knew of it and didn't report it by omission, as far as I'm concerned, you're guilty,
Well, there have to be layers of it. I agree with you.
Total layers of it. Total layers of it. Daniel, what's new for you? I know that last time you were coming on, you were running for the special election in the Assembly District, my district. What's new on the horizon for you? I know you chair or you're president of the West Hills Community Council. You've contributed of over 20 plus years to the community. What's going on with you? Tell us, give a pitch, a phone number, fax number, email, whatever the case may be, whatever you want to do. Take the microphone, my boy.
Well, I didn't win the lottery yesterday, so was it yesterday?
I got one number.
right. So I don't expect to be running for office again in the near future. I enjoyed being a campaigner. I learned a lot from the experience, and most of all, I learned about myself, my ability to talk about the issues. I enjoyed the forums. I enjoyed being on this show. I did not enjoy the money raising.
Did you spend a lot of your own dough?
Yeah.
Like lots?
Well, $2,000 or $3,000.
I was gonna. Well, let's do this. Did you qualify? Did you have the ability to qualify for matching funds? And if so, how much did you? What was that threshold?
I don't think they. I didn't even.
The matching
explore
funds
it.
are only for presidential campaign. I don't know. That's why I asked.
I don't know what is available, but I heard nothing about matching funds in the course of my experience. But I really appreciate all my friends and others in the community, Republicans as well as Democrats, who supported me and contributed to my campaign, and I'm truly moved. I'm sorry I didn't, their investment didn't pan out.
But you made a good showing.
Yeah.
And for the record, I not only endorsed Daniel, not only voted for Daniel, but I was with Daniel the night the election results were coming
That's
in
right.
at the bar and grill, drinking, eating, and having a good time.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't care about the election. I
that
just
is a
wanted to
fact.
drink, eat, and have a good time.
Was there tequila in there?
Yes.
Yes, there was.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for. I want to speak out there into the ether, into internet land. Thank you everybody for this experience, and I don't know if I'll ever do it again, but only if I could find some other way to finance the campaign than soaking my friends. To be
I
honest.
see. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So people just gave their dough to
Yeah.
the campaign.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
nice.
I'm really moved by it.
And with that, I think we've come to the end of another fantastic show. My name is Steve Appel. You've been listening to Work Comp Matters, brought to you by A1 Law, Santa Monica Tickets, and, of course, ABC Rugs. I want to give a very special thank you to my Chief of Staff, Dr. Michael Zyma. In for Robert Ozeron, Mr. Daniel Brin. On the board, taking care of the technical difficulties from Uncle's studio, Mr. Scott Walton. And, of course, a great shout-out and a thank you to all the good people at WorkComp Central who continue to support and approve of this project, including but not limited to Mr. Leaf File and Mr. Jake Paris. My name is Steve Appel. We'll see you again next week for another edition of WorkComp Matters.